who are junior to you grow. You're on their shoulders, so you grow with them. There's no point in keeping youngsters down. I hope for a day when India's education system is much better. Kids don't have to go outside to actually get out of the pressure cooker that's the Indian education system and actually work themselves out.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Lawyer podcast. My name is Jana Krishnan. I'm your host and the founder of the Daily Lawyer. And this is one more episode in our Careers in the Law series. Today, again, I'm in Chennai and we are sitting down with legal luminaries of the Madras High Court. I'm sitting with Senior Counsel, Mr. Srinath Sridevan. Thank you for giving me your time and for being on the podcast. Srinath is a designated senior of the Madras High Court. Prior to that, he was one of the founding partners of HSB Partners, which is a full-service premier law firm in South India, but operating out of Chennai primarily. Srinath is a gold medalist from the Madras Law College here in Chennai, and then went on to take his LLM at New York Law School, New York City. Then worked with the magic circle firm LLM in London before he returned back to India to establish HSB Partners. And in addition to being a really successful litigating counsel, he also gives a lot of his time to pro bono work, especially, this is something I'd like to speak to him about manual scavenging. And he also spends a substantial amount of time mentoring young lawyers and law students. These are some of the things we're going to be getting in the episode. But I don't want to talk anymore. I'm going to let Srinath talk. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Like I said, you did come back. You went to NYU on a scholarship, as I understand. Then you were working with Magic Circle firm. And if I have to give marks for the question that I get asked maximum since I started the Daily Lawyer is, should I do an LLM? Is it worth it? So I want to actually start there. What do you think?
See, back when I did my master's in law, the impulsions for doing a master's degree were very different. I've always felt that having regard to the nature of the education system in India, a master's degree in the US gives the child space to really discover themselves and find out who they are, which is a fundamental step in being successful at anything. In the present day and age, there are certain specialized law schools where you can consider a master's, but then again, I think discovering yourself is the greatest step in success, and that you do need that extra time outside of India to do that, I feel. So I always think a master's degree is a good idea.
Now, can I just say one thing to that? Somebody asks me this question, I usually tell them, if you have the money and you like to study, then do your master's. Otherwise, don't work. Would you agree to that?
I don't want to, because that creates a kind of a classist differentiation between people who can afford and can't afford it. It's good. I hope for a day when India's education system is much better. Kids don't have to go outside to actually get out of the pressure cooker that's the Indian education system and actually work themselves out. But till then, it would be good if everyone has an opportunity of that quality. Yes, so if you can get a scholarship and go, it will be great.
Yeah, if you have the money, means if you can find the money, whether it is scholarship or
I don't want to agree with you.
But I get it. We get the message. Okay. I really want to ask you, one, what prompted you to come back to India? But also, you came back to India and established a law firm. So how did your international experience working at LLM and then interning prior to that at another law firm, how did you did that help you at all when you came here and set up a law firm?
Oh yeah, it did. That's a great thing. Two things. My reasons for coming back were personal in the sense that my mother was alone, and so I had to come back. To me, I didn't even consider any other alternative. Mr. K. Harishankar and T.K. Bhaskar. They were the persons with whom I formed HSB. They had also studied in the US at the same time that I did. They both went to Northwestern. Hari worked in Chicago after his masters, and Bhaskar worked at New York with Scavenging, which was also my after he finished. And so we were in touch over this whole period, Bharat Mata Ki Jai and all that. And when we came back, Hari and I first thought that we've seen the world, we should bring the world's best practice back to Chennai. And so we started in a small way. And then at some point then we talked to Bhaskar as well, and that's how HSB was formed.
So then what specifically do you think you got from there to here?
We brought in certain practices which I think Chennai had not seen. I mean, there were other excellent firms even back then when we formed HSB, but I like to think that we brought in something extra. We've been moderately successful, and until I became a senior counsel, I think we were doing quite well. Of course, after I became a senior counsel, I had to step out because that's the way the rules are.
Yeah.
But it was an outstanding experience to work with your friends and grow together. And we built a large family around us, and our children are doing well wherever they are right now. Each of them is doing well in different firms and different places. So I think it was a wonderful experience. What we brought back with us, I think we brought the culture of professionalism. We tied it in with what we believe are Chennai ethics, and we tried to bring in efficiency, responsiveness, stuff like that. To what extent our masters helped us, I think the commonality that we were all LLMs. That's it.
Okay. Me too. I was about that too. Now, speaking of, you were speaking, I was really happy to see when you said, all our children are doing well and created a family around us. I really think that speaks a lot about the values that the firm embodies, and obviously the firm is an extension of all of you. So the values that you all embody. And this is a nice segue for me to ask you about your mentorship work. Because I got to know that you spend and you devote a substantial amount of time mentoring youngsters, young students, and lawyers, etc. So, what do you have to say about that?
I think pretty early on, I realized I was coming in touch with minds who were far better than mine. And so, to me, it was very exciting to meet these young talents coming out of India's law schools. And so, it started by accident. The first person I mentored was back in 2004. She went to Allen Overy, and now she's a professor at LSE.
Okay.
One of the most brilliant young lawyers I've ever known. And so what you do is, it's not like I tell them what to do, but you play a role in enabling their journey towards fulfilling their potential. And so it was her, then there was a very brilliant boy in 05, then 07, there's this amazing young kid. 08 is a boy who he's now in Freshfields. The boy in 07, he's now in NatWest.
Wow.
Then in 09, there's a brilliant girl, she's now with Trilegal. So then I decided I would pick one kid per year and follow the journey forever after. I mean, until they tell me to stop stalking or something like that. But, so I keep in touch with them. If they have any questions, I answer. But most of them have grown beyond the stage where they have questions. Mostly, we are friends now. And in fact, there was an alumni meeting in London earlier this year of kids who are my mentees.
Is it?
So
Sweet.
4 or 5 of them who work in London, they got together and sent me photographs.
How sweet.
So that's very fulfilling because I think at some point of time, lawyers, people in any post of responsibility have to realize that when the people who are junior to you grow, you're on their shoulders, so you grow with them. There's no point in keeping youngsters down. Enable them to grow, you'll find that you're growing in the process. It's like magic.
Well, that's lovely because that's not very common. How do you pick this one person?
So we take in HSB we were taking a lot of interns, and since we were doing quite well, we got a lot of internship applications, and there'll always be this one exceptional kid out of the bunch.
You know why I ask? We have a real power to change somebody's career trajectory with one internship. So when you were saying that, I was reflecting back on my experience, which was very recent. And then I wanted to ask you, do you, and I'm sure some of them may watch it because they're a part of that WhatsApp group, but if anyone writes to you, what are some of the things that you look for that you think, oh my god, this kid is got it like that?
How you get picked up out of an ocean of applicants, that's just, I suppose, I don't know what to say. In internship letters, in application letters, you can't make out anything. But one step before me, right? When I'm explaining things, I spend a lot of time teaching, concepts from first principles. Then the kids who are getting it, and I see that there's a resonance going on, and that's how I pick. You know.
Okay. Now the other thing I want to talk about again, I know I alluded to it during our introduction, but I read this article about when I was researching a little bit before this interview. I read this article about your work with animal scavenging, not as in your work in advocating for animal scavengers, and how that has actually resulted in a substantial benefit that they have received from the Tamil Nadu government. And I wanted, if you are okay with it, I would like you to speak a little bit about that.
I think while I was growing up, I've always seen these people, who'll be up to the neck in the manhole, and you unsee it and you move on. So that's the only way you can rationalize stuff like that. And you always wait for an opportunity to do something. And then at one point, Mr. Westwater Wilson, one of the greatest human beings to exist, he reached out to me saying that look, Tamil Nadu is one of the states where the highest number of manual scavenging deaths happen. Can we do something about it?
Can we just take a minute and talk about what is manual scavenging?
Sure. Manual scavenging is humans going into sewers to remove the blocks in the sewers. The block may be because of plastic, bodies, could be anything. And so you really need to go into the human waste. Go submerge yourself, pull out what I was blocking, come out, and then you go along with your life. And so what happens in these sewers, simply because of what they are, you have a buildup of some very poisonous gases. And these gases are heavier than air, so they just sit inside. You can walk over a manhole and you won't know it. So they'll go in and they'll die. One more guy will go in to pick him up, he'll die. And so this is manual scavenging. The government brought one law in 1993 to abolish it, and one more law in 2013. The Supreme Court issued a direction in 2014. But so to give you some idea, in Tamil Nadu, 44 people per year were dying. 44 per year. It's staggering. And this is happening, people who are doing what the government tells them to do. These are government employees dying at 44 people per year.
But how are they still doing it if there's a directive that is prohibited?
So, you're absolutely right. So, there's a law which says that it's prohibited, but you can do it if you have protective gear.
Okay.
Okay, and protective gear is a kerchief around the nose, right? Well, that's how it was. It was inhuman. So once the law came, what the government would do is they will appoint a contractor to do the cleaning. The contractor engages the very same people to do this. And what happens is, these people who are earlier in the government employment are now in private employment. They're still dying at the same rate. They don't get the benefits of being government employees. And in a very, very curious phenomenon, what I noticed is, if there's a clog of a sewer, if someone's sewage tank in the house is stuck, these people take, it seems to be some, I only call it pride, that only from this particular community someone will go.
Oh.
It's a community thing. There's a caste angle to this. So this is something I took very seriously. I filed this case in 2017. At that time, the Chief Justice was Indira Banerjee. She heard me, and in 10 minutes she passed an order saying that the government can't appoint any further contractors. For a while it helped, but then the government started doing it again. Then after that, the case was going along at its own pace. People started dying again. Then we had a Chief Justice called Sanjeev Banerjee. And when I told him what happened, I brought all the facts. He said that hereafter, if anyone dies in a sewer in a municipality or corporation, the IAS officer who heads it will be prosecuted for murder. And for 2 years it stopped. That was amazing. Then a couple restarted. Then we had Chief Justice Ganga Purwala, who was our Chief Justice. He came in, he reinforced the direction, and he also directed the government must form a scheme for making them class 4 government employees. So what's going to happen is two things. One is, he's ensured that everything is mechanized now. So we've ensured it's mechanized. We've ensured the compensation for death is 30 lakhs now, for injury it's 20 lakhs. And to me, what's most important is, once these people are government employees, forget this generation. But the next generation will think their children are government employees, we can't go down to this year. And we're breaking this. That's so important. And so, and this judgment came on 30th of April 2024. So I feel we made a difference. Now I want to roll it out pan India, because in UP it's still going on, Maharashtra is going on, Karnataka. So I'd like to roll this out pan India.
And how are you planning to do that?
So I'm collecting the statistics for a few other states, and once we do that, file it.
File the IELTS with...
No, Article 3.
Okay. Wow.
If it works.
If it works, it will work. Why not? It's why it works so much. And there is a slight segue that I want to make on the value of pro bono work. And I want to sort of reinforce this point, because our audience is not just lawyers. We have a lot of non-lawyers as well. We have a healthy mix of lawyers and non-lawyers who are listening to the podcast. And I want to speak about the value of pro bono work. So that's what you highlighted today. That as lawyers, you really have an instrument of change in your hands. And what is your view on pro bono work that lawyers must do or should do? I don't think all of us do it. That's not safe.
When you said instrument of change in our hands, that is the truest statement. Now, if you want to make a change in the world, you can join politics, get elected, get into legislature and make a change. Or you go into the IA, do the UPSC, become a collector, go into the executive, make a change. As a lawyer, you're part of the judiciary. As you rightly said, you can be the instrument of change. And this is one way in which you can actually make things slightly better.
Yeah. And that's hopefully what we are doing with all these conversations as well. Being instruments of change through this type of, I hope so, I really hope.
I think access to law means different things to different people, depending on the class of society it comes from. To a wealthy person, who doesn't want the rigor of the law, a lawyer is the first port of call because you want to avoid repaying, you find a lawyer, give a notice, try to get OTS, stuff like that. Whereas if you're from the lower strata of society, you first go to your MLA or your counselor or something and you try to sort things out with people you know. The law is something very distant and forbidding and unfriendly. It's people wearing black dresses and it's a lot of money involved. So I think the important thing which comes up when I think a lot about what you said is that the courts present a fantastic opportunity to make a level playing field where poorest person can call Bill Gates to account, assuming Bill Gates is subject to criticism first, can call Bill Gates to account for his actions. And I think that is very important. And pro bono work enables people to do that. Doesn't matter how rich you are.
Yeah.
If I can reach you with a PIL, you have to answer me. You will still be right to answer.
But this thing what you're saying, that if the courts cannot discriminate, they do not discriminate, doesn't matter whoever you are, our doors are open. That is the general rule.
Yes.
I mean, that is it. Okay? But most people don't know. I mean, you engage, I'm sure, in your pro bono work with people from all strata of society, all shades of the on the economic strata. And from what I'm saying is one step before there is a problem. I mean, this is of course pro bono work and PILs, we are making a change. But I want to also hopefully make a change in another way, where we don't become litigious at all. We are able to, people come to us before they get into a problem. That's what I'm saying. I was speaking to somebody. There's a tribal land in Maharashtra, close to Bombay in another place. And this person has bought a land, constructed a bungalow, staying there for 3 years, from ex-sellers. Now she has got a notice from advocate so-and-so, LLMD. Okay. And all this, address, everything is there. And you have to pay the sellers 9 lakhs of rupees. So she calls the sellers. Sellers say, who's this guy? I'm never even engaged with. Now that fellow, we don't know whether he even has an actor's license, but in that small village, he is the advocate and he's waiting and he's doing all this. So what I'm saying is, for people like us, it is our duty to really go and educate. And I take pro bono work to that classroom through outreach programs at home. And can we do that as a community of lawyers? I was really shocked when I saw that.
Yes, you're right. I think inequality in access to information is such a big thing in India. I mean, like sitting here in a cosmopolitan center, you have access to such a wealth of information. The disparity in access to information is so large. You're talking about some guy who's probably a tout or a quack, ruling the rules simply because people don't know better.
But I have gone to that place. I went to that village, okay, and it's a tribal land, and they are doing farming. And so there was, you won't believe it. In front of my eyes, I saw this guy who was herding cows. It's just empty field. He's sitting with that stick, the geo internet. I'm watching something. Cows have gone somewhere. Sunset. I'm seeing the whole day. Whole day sitting and watching geo internet. In the middle of nowhere, geo has come. All his cows come back, one doesn't come. Because some white animal is captured. This fellow whose job it is to is lost in geo. So when there is so much penetration of the internet, that very place where there is this doubt, then why can't we, using the power of the internet, and whether it is conversation or whatever it is that we all do, why can't we reach them with all this? Because we can. Because that's what I think.
Yeah. Look, people should know that they have a right to ask a particular question, and that awareness must come.
Yes. So hopefully we will get. I mean, I just I just said this because I thought it just reminded me when you were talking about what you spoke about manual scavenging. I got reminded of this. I wanted to just say, and hopefully whoever's watching can, if they are interested, we can do this. Now, what are some of the common mistakes that you see people making? You've been dealing with so many litigants and clients in your capacity as a lawyer. If I have to ask you, tell me 3 common mistakes that you see people make, like 3 basic mistakes.
Sure. I think the first and foremost would probably be not replying to an important communication in time. So you get a demand notice from someone, or you get a notice from someone's asserting a particular claim. And what happens is, you either this person could have gone to the office and no one was there, so they came back and forgot about it. Or they were called up, that person given some reply, and nothing goes back to controvert the record.
Yes.
And 5 years later, when this becomes a case or litigation, and you didn't even reply to this, and there's no good answer for that. I think so. Failure to reply or document a response is the single biggest thing. The second thing would be wherever the law imposes a limitation to do an action not within things in time. I mean, that's just so tragic. I've seen so many people suffer because they didn't take something which required a 15-day, 30-day, or 90-day timeline, not doing it in time. And then years later, it's so clear that had they done it, they wouldn't be in the mess they're in now. And the third thing would be that if you're with a lawyer and you're seeing so many red flags in that lawyer, but sticking on to that lawyer until that lawyer completely fluffs the case up. And so I think in your interaction with lawyers, identifying red flags and giving the lawyer 2 red flag chances. And third, take a brief and walk away. I think that would be the wise thing to do, but somehow people persist.
There's a lot of fear also, I don't know why. What kind of red flags would you say are red flags?
I told you that in Chennai, ethics is very important. So, for example, if a lawyer is having a contingency fee, big red flag. Because then the mind is not the case, the mind is the fee. Then a lawyer who asks you to deposit original documents with him or her, huge. I mean, unless it's required for filing into court. A lawyer who asks for power of attorney, his or her name, massive. There's no need to do these things. Basically, anything where the lawyer is trying to be more than a lawyer, or the other extreme, lawyer missed a hearing.
Yeah.
Okay? But then you go back to the lawyer to refile or reopen, and then again the hearing gets missed. I mean, how many misses do you tolerate before you decide to take the file away? So it's either a lawyer doing something which is non-lawyerly, or a lawyer not doing
his job. Yeah. Good. See, these are very practical things for most people, I think, who are listening. Now, this one last question I wanted to ask you is to close out the section, and that is the role of AI in the law. I was told that you just delivered a lecture in the Madras High Court on the role of AI. It's a very interesting topic to me. What do you think AI? What is the role of AI? What do you see as AI doing in our profession? How can it help? How is it helping? What do you see as the potential?
The potential is infinite. At this point of time, it's too early to see if there are going to be any kind of limits. Because the way it is growing and the kind of places. Okay, so let me tell you, I got asked a very similar question. I was part of a state government panel called Imagine 2024, the future of work. And so they had about 10 professionals talk about the future of work in an AI world. And there was a doctor, there was a computer specialist, there was a YouTuber, I was law. And so a lot of students came and asked me saying, what's going to happen to our jobs? What's going to happen to us? And I think that any work, any legal work which is repetitive in nature, due diligence, or this churning out these shareholders agreements, page after page, all of this I feel is going to require a lot of conveyancing will require because what is taking a human 8 weeks to do for multiple lakhs to be done for 150 rupees in 3 minutes. I'm seeing some fantastic apps already which will do this. So I feel there on the transactional law side, I think AI will be a very cruel master. On the litigation side, I think it will be a wonderful servant because the kind of evidence analysis I've seen AI do is incredible. So, for example, I saw this thing where you fed in about 400 pages of documents and evidence, and you just ask a question saying that what evidence is there to show an intention to renew the lease? If it's
is it?
That's it. This person said on this day of cross-examination, saying we were contemplating extension. This document has this word extension. It's unbelievable. So I think it's going to be a fantastic tool for litigators. Yeah. But transactional lawyers, they're going to have to find to jump their creativity level one level above the AI.
Yeah.
So I think AI is going to be a massive game changer.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a huge new regulatory practice in AI. I'm seeing across the world young lawyers, there's a law, philosophy, psychology. There's an intersect, which is ethics in AI algorithms. Okay? And for instance, you look at the Chinese law regulating AI as well as the Japanese law. Okay? What they're saying is that the AI algorithm must contain a built-in code of certain social values, which must be hard-coded. So, for example, in China, loyalty to the party is a mandatory code. So, any AI, if you want license to operate in China, must have a built-in code that loyalty to party is part of it. So, you can ask it any number of questions, but it will say Communist Party is good because it's hardwired to say that. Now, the Western model of regulation is very different. Yeah. It's pyramidal. It's risk-based, and so you have low, moderate, high, and unacceptable. I think that that's the wrong way to regulate it. I think the Japanese and Chinese way is the right way.
Because it's more objective, no?
It allows AI to regulate itself. I don't think we can police it.
Yeah.
I think it's growing too fast and for us to pick up and say something because it's an organic system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Feeds on itself also.
Yes, exactly. So that's the first thing. Second thing which we're going to find is that because AI's function of large-scale LLMs, there's going to be an information monopoly which comes. There are going to be only 4 or 5 players who have access to these large LLMs, which enables the AIs to be efficient, their AI systems to be efficient. So I think going forward, in India especially, I think you're going to have information haves and have-nots. And that's going to be the big dividing line. People who have the full power of AI at their disposal and people who don't, that's going to be the new dividing factor.
And how do we solve it?
You're making a very good point. I think the Métis already are aware of this. We are going to see the regulations in something called the new Digital India Act. How far they'll be able to address this?
I think
they're work in progress.
Yeah, I think I can sort of go down a rabbit hole on this. There's so much I am sure all of us are having conversations on AI and law, your practice, all the things that we are doing which is ancillary to legal practice. But I think we'll have a whole podcast only on that. So I want to close out this section of our podcast, which is the main section. and then jump into our next section, which I do for myself because I love the answers. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So ask you 5 or something, 4 or something. And typically your answers are shorter than what your answers would have been in the previous section. So with that, 5 productivity tips that you would want to give.
So the first productivity tip is
I really love that you're prepped.
is to make lists.
Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the first one, and so here's my list. So first making to-do lists, okay? Then write down your thoughts, because when you write things down, you have clarity, rigor, brevity. Okay, and that's very important. The third thing is prepare for a meeting. My God, actually, this is a story by itself. Okay, preparing for a meeting. Chennai does it, Hyderabad does it, Bombay does it. Delhi simply can't. Okay, you go to a Delhi lawyer. Sorry to all of you go to a Delhi lawyer's office for a briefing. They open the file, you can see it's fresh
Shining condition.
and then they'll read with you, and you've flown 3,000 kilometers to see them. Yeah. So preparing for a meeting, that's super efficient. Then make certain activities sacrosanct. So at a particular time of the day, this has to be done. Wherever you are, what you're doing. So having certain things as sacrosanct. And the last thing is I think something which is of value to the present generation is avoid this thing called doom scrolling. Okay, there's opening Instagram and then just scrolling on and
That's
on.
what doom
It's called doom scrolling, I think. So that will just eat 45 minutes, 1 hour without any. That's a huge consumer of time. I realized I was doing it, and so now I have a 5 minute for just aimless brain off Instagram.
But how do you stop at 5? You have a timer on your phone, is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have one which says 1 hour, okay, Instagram. Many times. Early in the morning, my 1 hour is over. Because I wake up very early. So, suddenly it's not even 6 o'clock, I finished my 1 hour, So, yeah, you can reduce that to 5 minutes. I learned something. Okay, now this is a tough one, I know. But 4 books that you would recommend. Anybody? It need not be law books at all.
No, I'm not going to tell you.
Thank God.
So,
everyone has been telling me law books and very politely saying
first thing is something on sense.
Something on science?
Have to read.
Oh, okay. That you read anything on science. Is that what you're saying, or there's a book or something on science?
No, anything on science. Sorry.
Anything on science.
Any book on science, please read, because I think the mysteries of the universe is something our mind should always be open to.
And do you have a book that you recommend? Like Stephen Hawking's?
It need not be non-fiction, it could be fiction. In science fiction is good enough.
Yeah.
Because
okay,
this is exactly.
He
Oh my God, yes. Yes. Well, so that's one thing. Second thing is, I like all books of this guy called Borges. He's an Argentinian writer. So he writes stuff which is every paragraph you need to stop, go to the encyclopedia, read, learn, come back. It's beautiful. And it's beautiful writing also. That's one thing. Then this one, HR and autobiography. Simply because it tells you it's the only place you can go to find out what he did on the evening before his ADM job could be sent. So I'm not going to tell you what he did, but read it to find out. It's not like a big climax or anything, but it tells you, it explains a lot to you. And ADM, every lawyer has to know ADM level code, has to know the dissent, and has to know the kind of moral courage it took to dissent, and the penalty he paid. And then the last is I personally like The Nature of Judicial Process by Benjamin Cardozo, because it's almost mathematical in his approach to law. So I like it. I have a stack of them, so all the kids whom I want to enthuse, I'll give them a copy and make them read. So these are.
I'm loving how all the answers today that I have received for this question is so different. Typically, I read quite a bit. I like to read. Typically, when somebody answers, you will have read one book or maybe sometimes all four, sometimes one book or two. Today, I'm thinking, okay, I don't know anything. None of these are ready. So, I'm really loving it. Now, 3 tips that you give law students.
Okay.
I love it. I just love this definition.
So, the first thing is, and this is something which I've told things. One is, the law is infinite, okay? And it's as infinite as human nature. It's like swimming out in the ocean. You can swim as far as you want, there's more to swim in any direction. So stick with it. You'll always find something to love. And yeah, the law is just a beautiful subject. We're all fortunate to be in it. You can't, if you stick with it, you'll find something to love. So stick with it. Second advice is persevere. Okay. A lot of, there's a different time limit depending on what you choose. So, for example, if you're switching jobs, okay, there's a honeymoon period, then there's a kind of a blank, then there's a disillusionment bump. You need to
get over
that, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not going to be like a new amazing thing. It'll be a new reality, and that's how life is. Okay, so that's the second important thing, which is that don't give up when you have this one thing where I can't go to work one more day in that place. No, you can, and it will be fine. So I always tell kids who are in the process of shifting jobs, saying that, depending on the kid, okay, sometimes it'll be 3-4 months, sometimes 6 to 9 months. You'll hit that bump, ride it out, and things will be fine. The third thing is that I tell everyone, write articles. Okay, because when you, it's very easy as a lawyer or any other job to get, stuck in the day-to-day existence. I carried this bundle to this court, or I went and reviewed this SPA, and to just exist from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever time it is that you follow. But remember to never lose touch with the intellectual side of yourself, because that's what adds value. Yeah. Not the, carrying the bundle or reviewing some stupid indemnity clause for 1,000 times. Yeah. So, yeah, right now.
Very nice answers. Each of them are very nice. Now, 2 life lessons that you have learned in your life so far.
Okay. The first is try to make a difference. Okay, this is something which I realized much later, after working on Safai, by the way. That is.
And Safai is the
manual scavenging. Yeah. Right. So this is something I realized after working the manual scavenging case. Make a difference. Do something which leaves the world a better place than when you came. Do something. And everyone can do something.
Yes.
There are so many things which we take for granted and walk past, thinking that we'll get taken care of, or the world is like that, which you can actually change. That's the first thing. The second thing is that people are fundamentally good.
Yeah.
We misunderstand them, or there's a backstory of them which we don't know. You just trust in the innate good of people, because people are generally good.
And finally, the one best piece of advice that you've ever received.
This is my father. Okay. So he said that you should always be like this and like this, which means always give. Don't expect to receive. If you receive, great. Always give.
Beautiful note for us to end the podcast. So, with this, we hope we have given all of you something today. I think I learned a lot from you. Beautiful conversation. I didn't realize how time went. But thank you so much.
I learned a lot too. Thank you, Jenna.
Yes, thank you. And hopefully we'll have more of you on the podcast. hopefully reverse it. Thank you.